next scroll saw pattern, I have used a picture that I printed out that I wish to attach to a 1/4-inch Baltic birch plywood piece, and then I'm going to be putting a puzzle pattern on top and cutting it out for a simple jigsaw puzzle. What I did was print this out first, the picture, because I want the Baltic birch to be the exact size of the picture with no border. It ended up being about 8 by 10.5. I also have my spray adhesive. It doesn't really matter what kind you use as long as it's a permanent bond. Spray adhesive works a lot better than glue and then painting it on because you might get bubbles underneath. And then I have my packing tape that I'll be using to attach this puzzle pattern piece to the top of my picture so I can remove it later. So let's get started. Okay, I've shaken up my spray adhesive, spraying the back part of the pattern very well, covering everything with a nice coating, especially getting the edges because we don't want those to lift later. I let it sit for a couple minutes. Now, while I'm letting that set, I want to show you that this actual puzzle pattern piece is larger than my 8 by 10.5 piece of wood, and that's going to work into my favor, so I'm not going to worry about the edges right now. Okay, I probably let it sit about a minute, and I'll be transferring it to the piece of wood. A nice thing about the spray adhesive too is you can reposition, oh that was lovely, you can reposition it as necessary before it truly sets. Flatten it down with something, a piece of wood, whatever you want. And after this, you're going to have to let it set for a little while to make sure that it sets really well. So I've done a pretty good job at gluing this up. Now it's time to put on our puzzle pattern piece. Now it is cut a little bit larger, so I am just going to put a crease so it lays real nicely and have this about the same amount hanging over on all 4 sides. Then I'm going to use my packing tape and attach it to my picture underneath. Now, when you use packing tape, make sure it goes around the back of it to hold it firm, because what you don't want is when you're on the scroll saw for it to come loose. And you're going to tape the whole thing up solid. The packing tape actually helps lubricate your blade on the scroll saw, so it's beneficial as well as holding your pattern piece solid. So make sure you cover everything and put a couple the other direction as well. This is my Win variable speed scroll saw that I purchased for my first videos for about $100. And I have a new blade in. This is a number 5. And you can hear the ping, so I have the tightness correct. And here is my puzzle piece ready to go. It is covered with the packing tape, front and back, and this direction as well as the width and the height. So it's when I start cutting, it doesn't separate and cause me problems when I'm cutting. So let's get started cutting. Take your time and do not rush on this part. Again, 2 hands firmly placed on both sides. Cutting right on the line. slight mistake and go off the line, that's okay. It's a puzzle piece. The size of blade, either 5 or 7 reverse tooth is the best to use for this so that there's less cleanup on the back of your piece. Make sure to hold your hands firmly on both sides while you're doing this whole project. Now after your first row is cut, because this is not attached to the picture, it's going to come loose on the edges. So I'm going to be putting more packing tape here to kind of hold that firm. Now when I was cutting the first row, you have your hands very close to the edges so that it stays against your picture and it cuts out nice and smooth. So I'm going to tape up the rest of this before I continue on. So I've taped up my next row and I'm ready to saw. And I wanted to show you because this is coming together really nicely. Looking nice already. Now, this type of taping to the front really only works for a simple puzzle like this. If you have something that's very involved with lots of pieces, you'll have to attach this differently to the back and cut from the back. Well, this is just for a simple child's puzzle. Now for this last row, it is going to flip up here, and if you wish to tape it again, that's fine. Or you're going to be cutting from this side, so it really isn't going to cause much of a problem because you only have 3 more cuts to do. Now here's the fun part, removing all the tape from the puzzle pieces and cleaning it up. And then when I come back, I'll be putting it all together. Here is a close-up of the finished puzzle. I think it turned out rather nicely. And I'm hoping that my granddaughter, when she gets old enough, will be able to put together this 12-piece puzzle on her own. Now, if you wish to finish it with some kind of a lacquer, make sure that you spray a very light coating on this with each of the pieces separated. Because if you put too much on, then they will not go together smoothly, and then you might have to sand, and sanding would not be a good idea because it may remove some of the front of the puzzle. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you.